Hey everyone, CPO here, and in this video I'm going to be doing a review of a dash cam. This has been a long time coming. I've been asked a lot over the last few years about dash cam recommendations. I post a lot of personal Facebook dash cam, so I call them dash cam diaries, of interesting things that happen out on the road. And I always get questions from my friends about my dash cam. Then Rexing USA contacted me just recently and said, hey, we've got this new camera called the V3. Would you be interested in taking a look at it? And I was like, yes, that's actually perfect timing because I've been considering getting a new updated camera and one that I could recommend to other people. And this one meets my requirements, which is also a bonus. All right, guys, so the camera itself is this guy here. It has a display, which actually my last camera didn't. So that wasn't a requirement for me, but I really like it. You've got a front-facing camera. You've got a rear-facing camera, which oddly enough can also point front. You could have both of them pointing forwards if you wanted to. Not sure what the use case is for that. It just uses a standard micro SD card. It has to have a pretty high speed capability. Yeah, it's pretty much it. All of your buttons are right here, easily accessible while driving, and I'll show you that once I get it installed. Now, speaking of install, it comes with a USB cable that plugs into your accessory 12-volt cigarette lighter adapter. I'm not using this because I'm using a hardwire kit. Comes with a pretty typical USB cable. Comes with some little wire tidy things. You can stick these around. If you run wire around the inside of your vehicle, you can use this to tidy up the wires. They actually give you a tool so that when you're prying open your trim to run that wire around the inside, they give you a trim tool, which is kind of cool. And then finally, you've got your hardware necessary to mount it to your windshield. Now, here's a caveat. As a Jeep owner, I found these didn't work. So I had to come up with a plan B, but I'll show you that once we get inside the Jeep. And then finally, an additional item that I needed that doesn't come in the box, but is pretty darn cheap to get, is the dash cam. This is the smart hardwire kit. You need this if you want to use parking mode. This has a low voltage protection limiter in it, so it won't drain your battery below 11.8 volts, but it allows you to have power to the camera with the vehicle off, and then it recognizes when you turn the vehicle on and changes modes accordingly, because you've got a parking mode that does one thing, and then you've got your normal driving mode that does something else. All right, so as mentioned, one of the challenges with this mounting solution that it comes with is with the Jeep super steep windshield. So most windshields are sort of slanted like this, in which case you'd put that like that, and then you can adjust your cameras. This camera is adjustable. You can see for the angle there, this camera is adjustable. But the problem is on the Jeep, it puts it there and there's no way to adjust it to where this front camera faces forward because of the angle. So then I thought, well, maybe I could try and figure out how to stick two together and make it, but then that was a little bit kludgy. So what I came up with is I found this suction mount kit. I don't know if you can see all these parts in here. I found it on Amazon. I will put a link in the description. It comes with a bunch of adapters. So what I did is I took one of those adapters and glued it to one of these that came in the kit that connects to the camera. And then it was able to give me a ball mount that now works. So the end result is I can now have it set up where I want it, which is good. It's a little far away from the window. I actually have another. I've been using the suction cup mount version because I've been testing, but I think here pretty soon I'm going to switch it to this stick-on more permanent mount, which I think will get it a little closer to the window. And then I have my hardwire cable kit run, goes up and around. I'm not going to show you how to run the wires because that's going to vary depending on your vehicle. And then I can just plug it in right there, and yeah, it will turn on because, well, it's powered. So what I do like about this is the fact that it is using Sony image sensors, which is pretty cool. I mean, Sony's got some really great sensors, particularly in the dash camera and security camera realm. It's got a really great Sony StarViz front sensor. It's got a lesser quality sensor in the cabin, the inside one, the IMX323, and you can see a difference. But the Sony StarViz is a great sensor, has really great low light visibility. Now you can have both cameras running, obviously. The maximum resolution with both cameras running at the same time and recording data is 1080p at 30 frames per second. However, you can turn off that inside camera if you don't want to use it, and you can get higher resolution and higher frame rate. So you can do 1080p at 60 FPS, which is the front camera, or you can do 2160p at 24 frames per second or 1440p at 30 frames per second. So better quality front camera resolution if you're not using the inside camera. It doesn't have a battery, it's got a supercapacitor, which means it's not going to have overheating issues. And as a matter of fact, I've been running this for over a month in probably one of the hottest times of the summer. We've had temperatures in the high 90s and the hundreds pretty regularly and have had no issue. Both lenses are at 170 degree field of view, f1.8 aperture. It's got a Novatech CPU that'll come in handy when I talk about the app that I use to connect to that, because it's not the factory app. Operating temperature is -20 Fahrenheit to 176 degree Fahrenheit. It can take up to a 256 gig memory card, and it records in H.264.MOV format. So basic sort of dash camera specs, but really the key elements there are the Novatech CPU and the Sony image sensors. So yeah, let's, what I'm gonna do is take this camera and set it up from scratch, and I'll just show you my settings and go through the menu options. All right, so the first thing you need to know is as soon as I turn on the camera, aka plug it in, it's going to automatically start recording. And that's useful to know because once you get this thing set up, you basically can forget about it, and you can adjust. So let me show you the buttons first here. This is the on-off button. Basically, if you just press it, it turns on and off the display. It doesn't turn off the camera unless you hold it down. This button here is going to be the menu button, but you have to stop the recording to get into that. So the very far right side is the OK, and that's also the start-stop button. So it's recording, I just stopped it. Now I can come back over here and go through menu options. So it's probably hard to see. There's a button here, and then there's two buttons, and then the third right there. So this is the OK enter button. This is up, down in the menu options. They do several different things. If you press this one, it will change the display. So now this is inside camera, which is this guy here. And then the smaller outside camera. This is just the outside camera, which I can adjust. I haven't really set it since I re-put it back on the window, and of course we're facing into the sun, so that doesn't help. And then that's just the inside, and then that's back to inside is the small window with outside. So I generally leave mine with the outside like that. Yeah, and I have it set to turn off anyway, so we'll go through that here in a second. The next button, the second to the end button, turns on and off your mic. You can see there, turns on and off. I recommend leaving the microphone recording on. And actually the main reason for that, not necessarily to record what's happening inside, but no matter how good of a camera you have, and let's face it, none of these are super great as far as capturing video of motion happening around you. But what you can do is just say, if you see something happen and you want to record the license plate number, you just say it, It's, Maryland 13765. And now you've just recorded that into your microphone. So even if your camera can't pick up the video later, you will have recorded the audio to make that notation. That came in really handy with my wife one time. She was trying to remember a license plate number that hit her. She did not remember that the audio was being recorded, but the entire audio was just her repeating that number over and over to herself, trying to remember it. All right, so back to this far right button. That's start and stop for record. And where this comes in useful, the lock feature, if you press and hold it for a second, you can see the little lock icon. That locks that and puts it into a different folder for the recording, and then also won't overwrite it. So this is set to loop record, so you never really have to worry about running out of space. If I hold down this button that I use to change the screens, if I hold it for a second, it turns on the Wi-Fi and gives you a Wi-Fi default password and an SSID, and you can change all of that. If I do it, hold it for a second again, it will turn that off, and then, but that's how I access the camera data from my phone. And you can do some setup stuff in there, but I prefer just to do it in the camera. So let's go into the setup. First of all, let's click into the menu. You have several different options here. So I guess before I go menu, if you long press this menu, it changes the modes. So this is in photo mode, and then the menu is contextual to photos. And you've got different options for photos than you do for recording video. Now, I don't ever see a reason to use the photo version of this. I just don't see it. What makes me sad, I guess, mostly is that you have a lot more options for making individual changes. For example, sharpness you can adjust in the photo, and I wish you could do that in the video, because I think the videos are a little bit too sharpened, which creates some artifacts that I don't like, but it is what it is. But there is a photo, and then if you hold it again for a second, you go into playback mode, which is what this mode is. Hold it again for a second, and you're back into the standard video mode. And then the menus, again, are contextual. So we're in the video mode. I'm going to hit it once to go into the video settings, and then I can see all of the options here. I can press that again to get out of it. Now, if I press it twice, I can go into system settings, and I have different system-related settings. So to start this off, I'm going to go hit the default settings. So I'm going to hit OK here. And I'm going to basically be restoring this back to factory settings so that I can go through with you the setup that I do. And then I can hit that and go back. So now I'm back to factory settings. You can even see it defaulted back to the screen. All that stuff is the same. So the first thing I do is I come in here, I hit it twice, I go into system settings. There's a Wi-Fi you can turn on and off. Again, I use the button. I hold this button down for a second to turn it on, so I don't worry about that. I don't leave it on. Date and time, you can manually set that, but I'm not going to worry about that because of the fact that GPS will set that for you. So I don't even mess with date time. Auto power off, I don't mess with. It's, if it's going to turn off after a certain period of time, I want it to run the entire time I'm in the vehicle and even out of the vehicle with parking mode. Volume, you can mess with if you want to adjust volumes. Again, all this stuff, I just leave alone. I'll show you the things I change. Frequency, if you're in a country that requires a different frequency, if you need 50 hertz, you need to go there to set it. We're US, we do 60 hertz, no big deal. Screensaver, this is the one that will automatically turn off the screen after a certain period of time. I usually set it for a minute so that I can sort of see everything's working, it's pointing in the right direction, and then it goes to sleep while I'm driving. Format would be what you would use to format the memory card. I guess I'll just go ahead and do that. It doesn't really matter. All data will be deleted. Okay. And now I've formatted. And then default setting you've seen. Version is where you can check the firmware version. Make sure you get the latest one. You can go into the firmware tool on the website. I'll put a link down in the video description for that. So yeah, those are the system settings. And the only thing I really change, honestly, is screensaver. Everything else I leave default. Okay, so I'm gonna hit this menu button again to go out of the menu, press it again, and now I'm in the video settings. For here, you can see your resolution options. These bottom two are for dual camera options. It defaults to the highest quality, so I just leave it alone, to be honest with you, but I'm showing you if you wanted to go just to the front camera, where you would go do that and set the different options. So I leave mine at full HD plus full HD, which is front and rear cameras. And I guess I need to set that. Okay, so resolution, again, I leave it alone. Loop recording, you can set your duration. I recommend leaving it on loop recording. That will continue to overwrite the memory card as it fills up, and you'll never run out of space. Again, the locked files are protected. I usually set mine to 2 minutes, 1 to 2 minutes. And that way, if you pull out a video file, you don't have to deal with large files or a lot of data. Again, I like to pull out interesting files whenever something happens, so a minute or two is about the right length. Wide dynamic range is automatically on. I just leave it on. It gives you better contrast. Exposure, you can adjust if it's too bright or too dark naturally in your vehicle. For example, if you, I don't know. Here's one of the updates I wish they would make, and that's the ability to set the exposure differences between the two cameras, because indoors I may want a little bit more exposure because I've got tinted windows, but I don't want that to impact the external exposure. So right now it seems to be a set it for everything. It is what it is. So record audio, again, you can turn it on and off here in the menu, or use the button like I did before. Date stamp is on by default, and that basically just puts it on the video, which I highly recommend. Gravity sensing. This will automatically lock a file if it detects an impact. So I have it set to low. Actually, I'm going to move it to medium. But what that will do is if you get into an accident, in theory, it's going to automatically lock the file that's recording at that time. Now, I haven't been able to test that because I haven't been in an accident, but I trust it works. My plate number, this is where you can go in. It's off by default. You can go in and customize it and put in your license plate number, your vehicle, your name, whatever you want. It will overlay on top of the vehicle. I've done that before, but I'm not really planning on messing with it right now because I just factory reset everything. Let me get out of here. So let me put this back to off because I don't want all those A's on there. But that's where you can set that. IR light, this is autos is the default. It's got these IR sensors, and I'll show you some video of that, what it looks like at night. And it will automatically detect when it's day or night based on the ambient lighting and turn that on or off. And I kind of wish there was a way to turn it into to parking mode only, so it was just on during parking mode, but not on when you're driving around. So that would be another request I have. If they do an update, that might be useful. Daylight savings, we are in daylight savings mode, so I'm going to turn it on. It's off by default. GPS speed unit, you can set it for miles or kilometers. It's miles by default, and that's where I'm going to leave it. Set time zone is important if you want the right time. And I'm going to set it for New York, which is Eastern. And ADAS, so this is some of the advanced stuff which I'm not using, but it's advanced lane departure type stuff. It can detect if you leave your lane. That stuff just gets annoying to me because apparently I cross lanes a lot. So anyway, and then parking monitor. This one is the one I require. It says you need a hardware kit. I do have one installed. And then there's two options here. Gravity sensing, which again detects if there's an impact to your vehicle, like if you get hit in a parking lot, it'll turn it on, or maybe a door slamming or something like that. However, I prefer time lapse, which just records a frame every second in a time lapse video. And I'll show you some examples of these, but that's where I leave it. And yeah, it reminds you that you need a hardware kit, which the smart hardwire kit. if that matters. So that is, those are all the options for video. So, and it shows you everything that's set. I've got recording audio set, my exposure set to 0. I've got wide dynamic range. It's in video mode. What do I have here? It's on looping for 2 minutes. I have a gravity sensor set to medium. Wi-Fi is off. There's the date and time, which is not right yet, but it will. No, this is the time recording for the last video or the current video it's on. So you'll see that update here soon. This is the resolution that I'm in. I've got dual camera, full HD P30. This is the date. This is the time, which will be automatically set via GPS because I told it to set the time zone. So again, I come in here and I'm like, time zone is New York, got it. And then I set daylight savings as on, got it. What I found is if I just do that, it automatically sort of updates to the right time. Although right now that is not the right time. And I'm not exactly sure why, but literally, yeah, I've been letting the GPS do it. So it catches up here. I'm not sure at what level, but it will. So all of that, I'm plugged into a hardwire kit, which is why I have the like 2-prong outlet thing. I've got the auto, it looks like an auto flash, but it's the auto IR. And my GPS has signal, which is what that little thing is. So let me get rid of my picture-in-picture. That's the display I like to see. Again, I can fine-tune cameras, both internal and external. Let me just double check since I've been playing around with this. Yeah, I want that probably right there. Right there, okay. Up here is the counter of the time that it's been recording. You've got a little red light flashing here while it's recording. So in this case, it's going to go to 2 minutes and then reset to 0 because it's doing 2-minute files per my menu setting. This screen will also go blank after 1 minute because that's what I've told it to do. I'm not going to sit here and wait for a few more seconds to go to do that. So now I'm going to turn the vehicle off and, you know, basically like I'm parking, right? Getting out of the vehicle and I'm parked. What you're going to see now is the red light is still flashing, and that's because now it's recording in parking mode. The screen automatically stays off during this period, but you can turn it on with that same screen on button. And what you'll see differently here is because it's in time-lapse mode, it's recording 1 frame every second. So it's going to take basically 60 seconds per second of video. So you can see there we've got 1 second of video recorded since I started this activity. And so basically that's going to slowly count up as the video length, even though real time is going a lot farther. It's kind of interesting. All right, so I'm back in the vehicle. I'm going to start it up. You're going to see something happen here. It's going to recognize now that I'm inside the vehicle and it's running. And it's going to start counting now regular time, which is recording real-time live video. So one thing I want to talk about is just practical use of the dash camera and how I might use it in normal operation. So one thing that's important to me is the ability to be able to lock a file if something happens in front of me that I want to record. There is some automatic event recording based on things like, you know, G sensor data, but you know, that's if you're in a crash. Sometimes a guy cuts out in front of me, or I just record, I want to record a beautiful sunrise or something like that. Doesn't matter, I'd like to be able to record it. So the way that works on this camera is if I hit this end button once, it will turn on the display. Once the display is on, I can press and hold that same button for 1 second and it will lock the file. And I'll show you this here after a bit. But that allows me to have that particular file saved in a separate location that I can go retrieve later. Now, sometimes I'm not quick enough to press that button in time to get it recorded in that specific file, but at least it gives me a date and timestamp that I can go back and research a little bit and you know, and find that file later on. So anyway, that's how that works. Now, I have my screen set to go to sleep after 1 minute, and then the display is going to turn off. I don't want to see my display on all the time. I find myself looking at it, and then that's, honestly, that's dangerous to be staring at this instead of the road in front of me. So it will turn off after 1 minute. There you go. And but the catch is, if you want to lock a file, if something happens, you have to turn on the screen first to wake it up, and then it will let you. I thought if I just held it for a second, it would lock a file, but it doesn't. It takes 2 presses if the screen is blacked out. If the screen is on like this, you just press and hold for 1 second. Anyway, the other important thing for me is the ability to access my information via Wi-Fi, and that's so that I can download video files to my cell phone for easy sharing. Again, if you know, I come across a stupid driver that I want to share, or a beautiful sunset that I want to share on Facebook, I want to be able to get the data off without having to pull the memory card and plug it into my computer and all that stuff. Anyway, that's just some information. I wanted to show you quick like application, how I use this thing all the time. Now, when you press that lock button, it's going to lock both the front camera view and the rear facing camera view, which in my case, yeah, in this camera, is right inside the cockpit. So I get both of those locked. Most likely I'm looking for the front view, but if something happens internally that you need to be able to capture, just know locking that will capture both of those views. I really like the camera. I like the inside view. Again, not necessarily because I'm an Uber driver or I want to video myself driving, although that could come in handy if there's a question of what I'm doing during the time that I am driving. Now, you can disable that and have only the front camera or only the inside camera. You can pick and choose what you want. I like it because I use parking mode in this. I just like having the inside recorded. If somebody were to smash and grab something and you know, not take the camera, obviously, I might have something on video. Anyway, guys, that's it. Thanks for watching. Like I said, sorry it's been a long time coming, but I can highly recommend this Rexing camera, the V3. If you don't need the inside camera, they also have a version without that. But I'm a big fan, and their support has been great. Super happy. They've been very responsive to my needs. I'll put an Amazon link in the video description where you can get this. It does help me if you buy it through Amazon. It doesn't cost you anything more, but you can buy it wherever. I don't get any kickback specifically from Rexing or anything like that. Anyway, guys, that's it. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.